Today's shiur begins at the beginning of the new parak, the 6th parak, and we're going to have Mirza Hashem, an unusual experience with regard to today's shiur insofar as we might end up learning an entire parak of Gemara in one shiur. Of course, you'll notice that this is a rather short parak, ending on the upper part of Daf Lamed Beis Omid Aleph. Another point about this parak is that it seems to be almost out of place, and the location is pointed out by Tosfos. He mentions that this should have been interwoven with the first parak of the Masechta. So there's a silver lining in this, that, as you all know, that review is the most important element of success in Torah learning and Torah understanding. And hence we have a situation where most of the information that we'll be seeing today is Torah learning that we've done at the very beginning of this Masechta. The main discussion today will revolve around the ne'emonus of an eid echad, of one witness, something that we've discussed extensively at the beginning of the Masechta. So now we turn to the Mishnah. Mi shekino es lekino leishto. There's a girsa that you see in the Tosfos that says mi shekina, means once he had warned his wife. Or, if you use the words as they appear here, one who had warned his wife not to go in seclusion with someone else, v'nistera, and she violated the warning, afilu shoma me'oif haporeach, even if the husband heard from a nobody, literally from a flying bird, that his wife had gone into privacy, into seclusion with another man. In other words, the source of information for her going into seclusion is minimal in terms of significance. It's not as if you have two witnesses telling him that. Nevertheless, there was a warning. And then the discovery of her going into seclusion, Yoitzi v'yitain ksuba, divrei Rebbe Eliezer. If the husband doesn't want to take her to the Beis HaMikdash for the drinking of the Sotah water, then there is sufficient grounds to divorce her, but she will receive her ksuba. This is Rebbe Eliezer's opinion, and this is Rebbe Eliezer consistent with what he said at the very beginning of the Masechta, that for stira, for information concerning the seclusion, even the husband himself, that's called al pi atzmo, would be believed. Let's take a look together at the Rashi. Filu shoma me'ot paparech shenistra, even if you heard from a flying bird that his wife had gone into seclusion after the warning. Yotzi v'ten ksuba Rebbe Eliezer tamei. The Yotzi is he divorces her, pays her the ksuba, and this is Rebbe Eliezer consistent with what he has said in the past. Yomar beperakama stira lobaya edus. Testimony concerning her going into seclusion doesn't require formal testimony. When we speak about formal testimony, that's the testimony of two kosher witnesses. Not so for stira, according to Rebbe Eliezer. Vafilu eved, vafilu shivcha ne'emonim, even a slave or a bondmaid, a heathen bondmaid, would be believed. Dahainu nami koifa porech. That's similar to a flying bird. The iskish l'tuma. The kulu mehemni ba. Seclusion is compared to testimony concerning actual intimacy. Tuma is a term referring to someone having witnessed her actual act of intimacy with the paramour. The kulu mehemni ba. With regard to testimony concerning tuma, everyone is believed. Hilkoch ne'esra alav. And here, this is a very important point. The Mishnah had said he should divorce her, but he does pay the ksub in the event that he doesn't want to give her to drink. He has to divorce her because she's become prohibited to him. If he doesn't want to give her the Sotah water in the Beis HaMikdash to drink, Yotzi, he must divorce her. V'yitei ksuba, and pay her the ksuba money. The ksuba, of course, is the financial guarantee that a woman receives by virtue of a tanai basin or a document that's written up. It's called the ksuba, that in the event she is divorced or becomes a widow, she receives monetary compensation. That is paid to her here if he doesn't bring her to drink. Let's continue now in the Mishnah. Rabbi Yeshua Omer, Ad Shisu V'yitnu Ba Moizoros Balavona. And here, let's take a look at the Rashi. Rabbi Yeshua Omer, Ad Shisu V'yitnu Ba Moizoros Balavona, Klomar. Mishum Stira She'ein Ba Shnei Edim, because of seclusion that lacks the testimony of two witnesses, two kosher witnesses, saying thusly, Eino ne'eseres alav. She does not become prohibited. This is, of course, an old machlokas tanoim that we learned at the beginning of the Sotah. What is necessary to establish this seclusion? Rabbi Ozer says, no formal testimony is necessary. Rabbi Yeshua says, for seclusion you have to have two kosher witnesses. And if you don't have that, she doesn't become prohibited. Just because you warned her, that's not enough. There has to be warning plus evidence of her being in seclusion with the paramour. Rabbi Yeshua l'tamei, this is again a demonstration of consistency. This time on the part of Rabbi Yeshua, in order to bring her to the Beis Mikdash to drink, i.e., in order to verify that there was seclusion, which is the grounds on which we bring her to drink, you need two witnesses. Miu, Kishayisuv Yitnu Mozoros Belavana, Bepritzusa, when the Mozoros has to do with women that spin wool. Belavana means at night. It's a reference to a certain group in the general population that tend to gossip with one another. So when they start to talk about her looseness, her frivolousness, mechur hadavar v'teitzei, it's disgusting, it's reprehensible, and she should leave. She should leave the marriage. Daha afilu mayasulo batkila, a married woman who has become the subject of gossip concerning her morality, is a woman that the waters will no longer check. The waters are not going to be effective in a case like that. Kinisan perakama utahorahi, from the pasuk that says utori, we darshan v'lo shiyisu v'yitnu ba mozoros balavona, and not a woman who is the subject of the nighttime gossipers. Let's now continue in the Mishnah. Omar Eid Echad, Ani Roisia Shinit Meis. A single witness says that when she was in that seclusion, that according to Rabbi Yeshua, there were two witnesses concerning the seclusion. According to Rabbi Ozer, even without two witnesses, but one witness comes and says, concerning the time she was in that seclusion, I saw her in not just from behind a closed door, but I was there when she was involved in actual act of intimacy. Oh, so if in addition to testimony that she was in seclusion, a single witness comes and tells us that he saw the act of intimacy between the married woman and the paramour, lo hoisa shoisa, she would not drink. One witness is believed regarding this, even to the extent that she'll lose her ksuba, because you have already suspicious circumstances. She was warned, there was seclusion, and on top of all of that, a witness comes and says that I saw the actual act of intimacy, that she's definitely been defiled, she's definitely defiled herself, and therefore there's no drinking. The drinking is to establish, to determine a circumstance of doubt. There's no doubt over here. V'lo od, elo afilu eved afilu shivcha, hari elu ne'emonim, af leposla miksubasa. Regarding testimony of Tumah, these non-eligible witnesses in general laws of testimony, when it comes to testimony of Tumah, of actual intimacy, they are believed. And so much so, even to the extent that she will not receive her ksuba. Okay, so there's no drinking, there's no ksuba, because in the case of Eid Echad of Tumah, on the heels of Kinui and Stira, which we called raglayim ladavar. We already had suspicious circumstances. This, according to the Torah, by virtue of Exeris HaKosuv, one witness is believed when that witness says, I saw the actual act of intimacy, even though this is an individual that wouldn't be acceptable in other areas of testimony law. The Mishnah continues with a list of 5 women. This list is, for people who are study Gemara, I would say it's a famous list. It's a list of 5 women that in other areas of halacha are not believed concerning their testimony when it comes to this particular relative. A mother-in-law, for example, that's the first example. She's not believed in general. Here, there will be an exception. The general case you find in Maseches Yevomis, where information concerning the death of a husband would lead to the ability of the wife, now widow, to remarry. And the halacha recognizes that information, even if it's conveyed on the part of people that ordinarily you wouldn't believe in terms of testimony, there is a leniency with regard to that information, death of husband. And in that context, we say these 5 women we would not believe, because these 5 women, I guess it's part of the nature of mankind that these 5 women are actually interested in messing up their relative, the woman who would benefit from that testimony. They're happy to mess her up, meaning they'll say that, yeah, your husband is dead, when he's really alive. In the meantime, she'll go and marry someone else, and the husband will come back, and thinking that he was dead because these women said so. So we don't believe them. They'll in general mess up their relative. Now, who are these 5 women? And I say, in this case, you'll see that the Mishnah says they are believed. They're believed to say nitmes. And as a result of their testimony, she will not drink. She's not going to lose the ksuba, though. So that is a bit different than the standard case of ne'emonos. Now let's see, who are the 5 women? Chamosa, a lady's mother-in-law. If she says, I saw my daughter-in-law in an act of intimacy, of course after there was kinui and stira, ubas chamosa, it's a sister-in-law. It's the daughter of her mother-in-law. It's her sister-in-law. The sarosa, a co-wife. Of course, the halacha recognizes bigamous marriages. So a co-wife is the 3rd lady. The yevimta. Yevimta is the wife of one's husband's brother. We might call that another kind of sister-in-law, but it's one's brother-in-law's wife. That lady, the Avimta, the wife of one's husband's brother, her let's say suspicion in general, why we wouldn't rely her in the case of the testimony of your husband is dead, is because in the event that this lady's husband dies leaving no children, this lady is going to end up marrying her husband's brother, and she's now going to turn out to be a co-wife with this husband's brother's wife. And number 5, ubas baila, the daughter of one's husband from another wife. Harei elu ne'emanos. Here, in the case of testimony concerning intimacy, if they say, I saw her in an act of intimacy, they are believed. V'lo leposla miksubasa, not to the extent that she would end up losing the ksuba. Elo shelo tishteh. Simply, she will not drink. She's considered tamea to the extent considered having been defiled, leaving no doubt about that. Vis-a-vis, there's no need for her to drink. But as far as believing these women who don't seek out her welfare and cause her to lose money, that far we're not going to go. And now we continue on the heels of what we are suggesting, that minimum quality testimony is necessary for edus of tumah. Shehoya bedin. That means, through logic, I would not have believed a single witness. Testimony in general requires 2 witnesses, not any less than that. Here we have this, we'll call this leniency, that we're accepting 1 witness. Then the Mishnah tells us at this point, all of this we've seen before, by the way, that technically or logically I wouldn't have believed 1 witness. If not for the fact that the Torah says to believe them, on my own I wouldn't have believed them. When I say Torah says, it means a gzeres hakosov, a special scriptural ruling that otherwise I wouldn't have accepted. Why not? Shahoya bedin. Logic would have told me, Uma im edus rishona she'eno sarta isur olam. The term edus rishona is a reference to stira. Stira, a testimony concerning her being in seclusion. Witnesses tell her she was in seclusion with a paramour. Does that make her permanently usher to her husband? No, because she could drink the water and turn out to be innocent. So, edus rishona she'eno sarta isur olam. It doesn't permanently prohibit her to her husband. Eino miskayemes bepachos mishnayim. According to Rabbi Yeshua, you cannot have testimony of stira with any less than 2 witnesses. You've got a formal testimony for stira. Edus achrona. Edus achrona is a reference to tuma, the act of witnessing the intimacy. Edus achrona she'osarta isur olam. If there is testimony that she had been the married woman had been involved with actual sexual intimacy with the paramour, she's prohibited to her husband permanently. Eino din shelo tiskayim b'pochos mishnayim. All the more so, you should insist on having 2 proper witnesses. So how is it that for a relatively light matter we require 2 proper witnesses? For permanent prohibition, we certainly should require 2 proper witnesses. Why is it then that we accept even 1 witness? Talmud loymar v'eid ein ba. This is a pasuk that we've seen so many times at the beginning of the Masechta. Bamidbar Perek Hey pasuk Yud Gimel. Let's read the pasuk together. It says, "V'shochav isha iso shichva zera v'ne'ela me'enei isha v'nistra v'hi nitma'a v'eid ein ba v'hi lo nitpasa." The pasuk describes her having had intimacy and not known to her husband. She went into private and she was defiled. And it says in the pasuk, "V'eid ein ba v'hi lo nitpasa." He lo nitpasa means, and she was not raped. What does that mean, eid ein ba? So the Mishnah says, "Kol edus sheyesh ba." We derive from this that whatever witness, whatever testimony you have, they will be believed. Let's take a look at Rashi. Kol edus sheyesh ba, second line from the bottom, ne'emon ba. Whatever testimony you have will be believed regarding Tumah. The Gemara will tell us that what the pasuk is really trying to say is as follows. Trey les ba. When it says aid, ein ba, aid is a word meaning, even though it's written in the singular form grammatically, it really means 2 witnesses. So that the Torah is saying, Trey les ba, 2 there are not. Well, how many are there? Eloch echad, there is 1. The kamar v'ilonit pasa, and the pasuk describes the cases of non-rape, meaning willingness, le meisra, that answers her, alma mehemon. So we see from this that 1 witness who testifies, I saw the intimacy, she, the married woman, becomes prohibited to her husband. She also becomes prohibited to the paramour, as we've seen in the past. Now, you'll ask, what do you mean she becomes prohibited? In the event that her husband dies, she will not be allowed to marry this paramour. The Gemara continues. Now that we've established that for edus of tumah, which we called edus achrona, or permanent type of prohibition, 1 witness is believed. How many witnesses should we require for seclusion, for the stira? If for this very weighty matter 1 witness is enough, for a less weighty matter like seclusion, certainly 1 witness should be enough, and yet we don't say that. Kal v'chomer li edus harishona me'ato. Now that we've said what we have regarding edus of tumah, edus rishona, edus of stira, certainly should be acceptable with even one witness. Uma im. We continue at the top of Omid Beis. Edus achroina shel sati se'olam harehi miskayemes be'ed echad. Mind you, edus achrona, edus of tumah, which permanently, if a witness says that I saw her in intimacy, that prohibits her permanently to her husband, and it's miskayemes, it's fulfilled, it's accepted with eid echad, one witness. Edus harishona sheino sati se'olam, the edus concerning seclusion, which doesn't permanently prohibit it, prohibits her until she comes to drink. Eino din shetiskayim be'ed echad. All the more so, it should be accepted if you have even one witness. Talmud loymar ki motza bo ervaz davar. That pasuk is in Sefer Dvarim. Ulahalanu omer al pi shnayim edim yokum davar. The pasuk, by the way, of ki motza bo ervaz davar has to do with issues concerning immorality. And of course, a married woman being suspect of going with another man is an issue of ervas dover, an issue of immorality. And in Sefer Dvarim Perek Yutes it says, Al pishnayim eidim yokum dovar. Notice the word dovar is dashed, underlined again. Ma lahalon al pishnayim, just like over there in Perek Yutes it specifies two witnesses. Afkan, so too with regard to edus of seclusion, afkan al pi shnayim, you would require two witnesses. At this point, we have three cases that we can read the Mishnah translated, but the Gemara will be focusing on them and explain them quite thoroughly later on. And if we wait for the Gemara, so we'll appreciate these lines much more than trying to explain them too much right now. Let's see. Case 1. Eid omer nitmeis. V'eid omer lo nitmeis. A singular witness says, I saw her defiled. And another witness says the opposite. Isha omeres nitmeis, v'isha omeres lo nitmeis. A woman says, yes, she was defiled. Another woman says she wasn't defiled. Hoisa shoisa. They cancel each other out. And let's assume, as we have all along, we're talking about a case where there had been a warning and she had gone into seclusion. As far as our knowledge of tumah is concerned, that's been canceled out. So we're left with the initial warning and the seclusion. So she goes and drinks. Let's take a look at Rashi on the second line from the top. Eid omer nitmeis ve'eid omer lo nitmeis. Uki chad b'hadi chad. Stand one up against the other. They cancel each other out. V'arehi kisfeka v'shoisa. She was like a case of a doubt. And how come a doubt arose? Because she received the warning. She went into seclusion, and we have a doubt. Next case. Echad oimer nitmeis, ushnayim oimrim lo nitmeis. One witness says she has been defiled. She was engaged in an act of intimacy. Two witnesses say to that one witness, and the explanation we're giving right now is beyond the translation. We're taking it from the Rashi. The two witnesses say to the one witness, lo nitmeis, meaning she was not defiled in your presence, because when you were there, we were there with you, and we saw a locked door. In other words, we were not on the other side of the door in the same room as the woman and the paramour, and you were with us, so you could not have seen the act of intimacy as you are claiming. Hoisa shoisa. So the woman will be made to drink. Maybe the intimacy took place before these people showed up. I said too limited an example. I said that we were on the other side of the door. No, they could have been in the same room with her and the paramour. But the point is, these two witnesses are saying to that one witness, while you were there, we were there with you, and we did not see any act of intimacy. It could be that before you showed up, in fact, there was an act of intimacy. So that doubt remains. So hoisa shaisa, she is going to drink. Shnayim oimrim nitmeis ve'echad oimer lo nitmeis. Here we have a case of two saying she was defiled, one saying not, two against one, lo hoisa shaisa, because the two who are saying nitmeis, they're establishing without any doubt that she was defiled. And a woman, as we've said so many times, a woman who was actually involved in an actual act of intimacy, so there's obviously no drinking. The drinking in the Beis HaMikdash is only to resolve a point of doubt, not something that's certain. The Gemara opens with a question. You notice we have to the immediate right-hand side of the Gemara text an arrow, a squiggled arrow. You can align this with the line above in the Mishnah. And the Gemara is going to ask a question regarding source information for the believability of one witness, or alternatively, the need for two witnesses in the case of Eidus of Stira. The Mishnah said, how do I know that you need to have two witnesses for Eidus of Stira? So in the Mishnah, we saw a Gezerah Shav of Dovar Dovar. But is that really the source? Hi, the Gemara asks, hi, Talmud Lomar ki motza bo ervas davar. The source that Eidus Rishona, Eidus of seclusion, testimony concerning seclusion, requires two witnesses. The Mishnah claimed that it's learned from the Dovar Gezerah Shava, the word comparison. But that's not so. Talmud Lomar bo. You remember the pasuk we had, pasuk Yud Gimel, v'eid ein bo, and in that pasuk we said two witnesses there aren't, but one witness there is, and that pasuk was dealing with tumah, was dealing with actual testimony of intimacy, not seclusion. So the Torah uses a limitation expression bo, meaning bo v'lo b'kinui, bo v'lo b'stira mi boyalei. That's what the Mishnah should have said. Let's go over that. The Torah said, Eid ein bo, means, in other words, that in the case of tumah, one witness is enough. Yeah, by bo, by tumah, bo is a pronoun. There, by tumah, one witness is enough, but it's not enough for kinui. It's not enough for stira. You need to have two witnesses for stira. Mi boyale means that's what the Mishnah should have said. So that the citation of a Gezerah Shav on the part of the Mishnah seems to be erroneous. The Gemara responds, Hachi nami ka'omar. The Mishnah assumed this source, and the Mishnah is to be understood thusly. Talmud lomar bo. As far as testimony concerning stira, we call it Eidus Rishona, we learned that you need to have two witnesses from the word bo. Bo v'lo b'kinui. Bo meaning regarding tumah, one witness is enough, but not enough for verifying that there was a warning. Bo v'lo b'stira. One witness is enough for tumah, but it's not enough to establish that there had been seclusion. For that you need two witnesses. The tumah be'alma below kinui u'below stira. Delo mehem eid echad minalan. Tumah in general, in other words, acts of prohibited intimacy. A married woman goes off with another man, and that married woman did not receive a warning from her husband, and there was no testimony concerning seclusion. We'll call this testimony out of the blue that a married woman had intimacy with some other guy. Lo mehem echad, one witness is not believed. The whole believability of one witness is raglayim l'dover, as we said before. It's coming on the heels of suspicious circumstances. There had been a warning, she went into seclusion with the other guy. But coming out of the blue, telling us about a married woman having intimacy with some other guy, the boss at her work, we're not going to believe one witness. Minolan, from where do we know that? Nemar kan dovar v'nemar lahalon dovar. It says in the realm of prohibited relations, the word davar, ki motza be'ervas davar, and it says in the realm of testimony, al pishnayim edim yokum davar, malalon b'shnei edim, just like in the pasuk dealing with testimony, it says explicitly 2 witnesses. Afkan, so too in matters of prohibited relations, if you want to have testimony concerning that, b'shnei edim, you'll have to have 2 witnesses. So we are seeing this point. I know for some of you it might sound like, wow, we've seen this so many times, but it's significant just to recognize that the concept of testimony concerning forbidden intimacy, generally speaking, you'll have to have 2 witnesses. However, if it's a situation of a woman that had been warned by her husband and there was subsequent testimony concerning her being in seclusion with another guy, and to top it all off, one witness comes and says, I saw, while she was in that seclusion, I saw her performing an act of intimacy. In that case, we'll believe even the one witness. We continue in the Gemara, and by glancing also at the side, in the margin, the nosei, the topic heading, Ne'emonus eid echad, the believability of one witness, laha'id shenitma'ah. So the Gemara says, eid omer nitmes. We saw in our Mishnah where one witness said she was defiled, and then we saw one witness saying she's not defiled. We have triangles numbered above. Triangle number 1 in the Mishnah said eid omer nitmes ve'eid omer lo nitmes, and the conclusion of that was she will end up drinking. Why does she drink? Taima de komakrish lei. The reason that she is made to drink is because the witness that had said nitmes was contradicted by a single witness saying lo nitmes. So they cancel each other out. You're left with the original doubt of a woman having received the warning and gone into seclusion. So the Mishnah rules she drinks. Ha lo ka makrish le eid echad mehemon. Had there been no contradiction, then the single witness would have been believed. Within the bracketed section, the Gemara delves into what's the source for one witness of Tumah being believed. Up till now, we've been working with that as an assumption, and yes, we saw in the Mishnah, we made reference to a pasuk Eidin Ba. The Gemara is going to delve into that. That's within the brackets. It cites the pasuk as we've already indicated. We have in Gemara markings put in a brackets here for one simple reason, and it's because the Gemara after the brackets is going to be asking a question on that which we just said, so that to make to maintain the logical flow, we just said that if there's no contradiction, so one witness is believed. If there is contradiction, namely, witness 1 comes in and says, I saw the tumah. A second witness contradicts, says, no, there was no tumah. So then, we don't accept the first witness who said there was tumah. But why should that be? Why is it that we reject that first witness? Just because there was a contradiction? Let's skip to the question after the brackets. Since the Torah gives believability to a single witness who says tumah, that there was tumah. How can a single witness that comes in afterwards to contradict him? How can he have any halachic weight? The Omar Ula teaches a principle. Wherever the Torah grants believability to one witness, those are obviously exceptional cases, but the Torah says in this case one witness is believed. And here we're dealing with that. One witness who says, I saw the tumah is believed. Harei kan shnayim, that one witness has the strength of 2. V'yein dvarav shel echad b'mokom shnayim, there's no room for the words of echad, that's the contradicting witness. He's a single witness saying, lo nitmes, So one person saying lo nitmeis has no chance against the power of two. True, it's only one human being, but it's one human being who is vested with the power of two. So how is it that there's any hakosha? So above, we said that one witness who says nitmeis is believed when they're not challenged. But if they're challenged by another one witness saying the opposite, so we disregard, we reject the one witness who said tumah. But that should not be. Even if the Eid Echad who said nitmeis is contradicted by a single witness saying lo nitmeis, we should disregard that lo nitmeis information, and she shouldn't drink. And yet the Mishnah said, Hoysa Shaisa, she does drink. Elo Omar Ula, who was just cited as the source of our question, Ula says, Tani lo Hoysa Shaisa. He says, change the reading of the Mishnah to say she would not drink. V'chein Omar Rabbi Yitzchok lo Hoysa Shaisa. Rav Yitzchok says the same thing. Not like what we see printed in the Mishnah, but rather, if one witness says she's nitmeis, and then one witness says lo nitmeis, we don't listen to the lo nitmeis. He's one against the power of two. And we're left with nitmeis. Nitmeis, the woman doesn't drink. Okay, we skipped a bracketed section, so let's go over that now. The Gemara had said that had there been no contradiction, so Eid Echad Mehemon, a single witness who says, I saw Tumah, is believed, and there's no drinking. Mino hanimili de tanu rabbanon. What's the basis of this teaching? So the pasuk says, we saw Bamidbar Parakeh, pasuk Yud Gimel, v'eid ein ba. B'shnayim hakosav medaber. Even though grammatically aid is a witness in the singular, the oral law is telling me that aid means two. There aren't. B'shnayim, there aren't two. Ata oimer b'shnayim o eino elo be'echad. When it says eid ein ba, maybe it means, as grammar would dictate, there is no witness. So what are we to make of the word aid? When you see that, does it mean two, or does it mean, as grammar would indicate, one? Talmud loymar, the pasuk says elsewhere, lo yakum eid echad beish v'chulei. There shall not rise up a single witness to testify against a person. Mimashma she'ne'emar lo yakum eid. This pasuk, in the Torah, every word, every letter has significance. The pasuk we just read, lo yakum eid. Did it have to add the word echad? Isn't eid already grammatically in the singular? From the fact that the Torah says lo yakum eid, Eini yodea shu echad, would I not have known that it's one? Ma talmud lomar echad. Why add the word echad? So the answer to that is ze bono av. This teaches us a general rule. Kol mokum shenemar eid, wherever you see the word eid without the word echad, we'll say the qualifier of echad. If you see the word aid alone, then harei kan shnayim, it's a reference to two. Ad she'ifru lo hakosav echad, until the Torah specifies the word echad. The Omar Rachmana, and the Torah is saying, in the case of the Sotah, it's what was the pasuk at the beginning of the source? Eid ein ba. What is it saying? Trei les ba elochad. Two there aren't, but one there is. And the pasuk goes on to say, "V'hi lo nitpasan." This lady was not raped; she was a willing partner, asura. By the fact that the pasuk describes her as a willing partner, that means she is prohibited. So it's from this pasuk, v'eid ein ba, that we know that one witness that says nitmeis is believed in the case of the Sotah, of course, coming on the heels of the Kinui and the Stira. We continue reading the section we read already, but as we mentioned, this is a throwback to the Gemara before the brackets. Since, as we've just established now, we saw the sources, that one witness is believed to say nitme'ah, that she was defiled. How can another single witness that comes in and says lo nitmeis, how could he be given any legal weight and be described as contradicting successfully the first witness who said nitmeis? The Amar Ula teaches us a principle. Kol makom shemina Torah eid echad. Wherever the Torah gives believability to a single witness, harei kan shnayim, he has the legal strength of two. V'ein Torah shel echad b'makom shnayim, and in general, as you all know, when it's two against one, the one is nothing. He's like non-existent. So what do you have over here? You've got, albeit physically one witness, but he who has the power of two saying nitmeis. The contradicting voice is simply to be disregarded. Oh, so then, if that's the case, so the guy that said nitmeis, that is it. Why then does the Mishnah say that in that case she is given to drink? Once we hear nitmeis from a source of believability, that's as good as saying she's definitely defiled. Definitely defiled. Of course, there's no drinking. Drinking is only to clarify a doubt, but there's no doubt. Hello, Ma'ula, Tani, Lo, Isa, Shoisa. In the case that we had in the Mishnah labeled as triangle number 1, the conclusion of that section should be, instead of Hoisa Shoisa, it should be Lo Hoisa Shoisa. She would not drink, because the one witness that says nitmeis has the power of two. V'chein Omar Rabbi Yitzchak Lo Hoisa Shoisa. She would not be given to drink, because, as we said, the one witness that said nitmeis has the power of two, leaving no room for a contradictory single witness to claim otherwise. Rabbi Chia Omar Hoisa Shoisa. Well, Rabbi Chia doesn't change the Mishnah; he leaves it as it is. Well, if that's the case, the Rabbi Chia Kashya Ula. But as far as Rabbi Chia is concerned, then isn't Ula's principle a problem for Rabbi Chia's approach? Lo Kashya. There is no problem for Rabbi Chia. You've got our Mishnah is featuring one scenario, and Ula is dealing with another scenario. Kan bebasachas. The case in the Mishnah is where those two contradictory witnesses come in at the same time. In other words, witness one says nitmeis, and toch kedei dibur, within 2-3 seconds of his testimony, the other guy says no, lo nitmeis. There was no time for the first testimony of nitmeis to gel, to harden, to concretize, to take root. It was immediately refuted, or was immediately contradicted. However, Kan, Ula's din is bozeh achar zeh. Ula's din is a case where one witness comes in by himself saying, nitmeis, I saw her in intimacy. He walks out of the court. Sometime later, another witness comes in and says, lo nitmeis. Too late. The first witness who said nitmeis, his testimony had been accepted. It wasn't toch kedei dibur within a 2-second time frame where it's considered one unit of time. This case is there was a gap in time between the first witness who said nitmeis, his testimony was accepted, and then afterwards a contradictory witness came in. Too late. We don't reckon with it. We don't believe it. Because of Ula's principle. Harei kan shnayim. Tnan. Eid omer nitmeis. Ushnaim omrim lo nitmeis. Hoisa shoisa. I hope this is familiar. You look back in the Mishnah, you see case number 2 above. One witness said nitmeis, and 2 witnesses said lo nitmeis. The Mishnah in triangle number 2 said she will drink. There is room to draw an inference from here, where in this quote from the Mishnah, the one witness who said nitmeis, he was contradicted by two witnesses who said, how can you say nitmes when we were there together with you and there was no intimacy? So the testimony of that one witness saying nitmes is voided, is refuted. We could infer from this, though, chad vechad, if it was one against one, not one against two, but one witness saying nitmes and one witness saying lo nitmes, then the ruling would be different. It would be lo hoisa shoisa. She would not drink. Why wouldn't she drink? Well, that would be like the one witness we saw before has the power of two, and he's claiming nitmes. The second guy has no room to refute him. Tufta de Reb Chia. Here we have a case of chad, one against one, and the inference is lo hoisa shoisa. What did Reb Chia say about a case of chad? He said yes shoisa. So this is a challenge to Reb Chia. Omar loch Reb Chia uletamech. According to you, that claim that the Mishnah is really being taught for its inference, and you're using that inference as a question on me, well, just continue reading the Mishnah and see what you end up with now. This is the third case, the third triangle from above. Shnayim oimrim nitmes, ve'echad omer lo nitmes. Two witnesses say that she was defiled. One saying no, lo hoisa shoisa. Well, two saying she's defiled. There's no chance for one to say otherwise. So she's definitely guilty. No need for drinking. What would you infer from here? Chad vechad. But if it was one against one, one saying nitmes and one saying lo nitmes, then the inferred case would be hoisa shosa. Not like in the Mishnah's case, so it said lo hoisa shosa, but the inferred case would be if it's one against one, she would drink. So Rabbi Chia is saying if you're going to say that the Mishnah is here to tell me inference cases, you've got a contradiction. Just take a look at what we've marked off. The first diamond was followed by a dashed underline statement, lo hoisa shoisa, and here the same case, hoisa shoisa. So Reb Chia continues with his explanation. Elokula b'psuli edus. The Mishnah is actually to be learned at face value, meaning no inferences. Don't draw inferences. And the Mishnah is dealing with testimony from those who are psuli edus, people who in general are not accepted as kosher witnesses according to the laws of testimony. The common example would be women. Women are do not function as witnesses where formal testimony is required. Here, in the realm of Tumah, of the Sotah, we know that we deviate from the rules of the traditional requirements for testimony. And the whole Mishnah, when it speaks about 2 against 1 and 1 against 2, we're talking about psule edus, the Rabbi Nechemya hi. And as Rashi emphasizes, what B'chia is telling us, the Mishnah is not to be learned for the sake of the inferences, but rather the Mishnah is to be learned at face value. And therefore there's no kasha on Reb Chia. The whole kasha on Reb Chia was developed because of the inference that we drew from case 2, but disregard that. And we learn the Mishnah as being based on or authored by Rabbi Nechemya hi, and it's in accordance with Rabbi Nechemya. Desanya, Rabbi Nechemya oimer kol mokom shemina Torah eid echad. Wherever the Torah believes a single witness, like our case, the edus of Tumah by a Sotah, halocha HaRav Deos. If there is any contradiction or controversy in the testimony, follow the majority of Deos, the majority of opinions, or the majority of the people, what they're saying. We call it the source goes on, but from the Rashi on Daf Lamed Beis, we we can say that this is not Rabbi Nechemia continuing to speak, but rather it's an added interpretation, or it's an application of Rabbi Chia. V'asu shtei noshim beish echad kishnei anoshim beish echad. As a result of this unique realm of testimony, namely a realm in which the Torah believes an Eid Echad, it's all a matter of numbers, and two women will win out, or their words will be accepted against even a man if he's one man, just like two men beat out one man in testimony. So what you do at this point is you go back to the quotes from the Mishnah. Take, for example, case number 2. One witness said nitmeis. 2 say lo nitmeis. So you follow the majority. So it essentially is there's no testimony of actual tumah. Okay, so then you're left with the original doubt. The woman was warned. There's testimony she was in seclusion, so she drinks. Case 3, 2 witnesses saying that she was defiled, 1 saying not defiled, 2 against 1. You follow the 2 that say she was defiled. No drinking. V'ika di amri. And then we have a variation, another approach, another version of what we have just said. Kol hecha da'asa eid echad kosher me'ikara. If one adult man, an adult man is called an eid echad kosher. He's an individual that would be acceptable in the general laws of testimony. So if an eid echad kosher comes at the outset saying nitmeis, I saw defilement. Afilu mea noshim nami ke'eid echad damyan. Even 100 women that would contradict have no more power than one witness. And therefore, they will not be believed. And as a result, there's going to be no drinking, because we're going to be accepting that Eid Echad Kosher who came saying nitmeis. I hope you notice that in this second version, we're not relegating the Ish Echad to be defeated by 2 women. In the first version, 2 women would win out against 1 man. Not in this case. Not in this version. We continue at the top of Daf Lamed Beis. V'hacha b'may askinon. In our Mishnah, where it said, 1 witness said defiled. 2 witnesses say not defiled. She does drink. Well, what's the case then? Kegon dasoi isha meikara. The first witness that showed up was a woman who said nitmeis. And then 2 women say lo nitmeis. So the 2 women beat out the 1 woman. You're left with the case of lo nitmeis, no testimony of actual intimacy, and therefore she'll drink. V'tirtza l'derebi Nechemia hachi. And they say straighten out the Rabbi Nechemia presentation as follows. Rabbi Nechemia oimer kol makom shemina Torah eid echad haloch achar rov deos. Wherever the Torah grants believability to a single witness, as is the case of the Sotah and testimony of nitmeis, you follow the majority. Whatever the majority says, that's what we accept. And here we go on with the interpretation or the application of Rabbi Nechemia's words. V'asu shtei noshim be'isha achas. 2 women versus 1 woman. Kishnei anoshim be'ish echad. Like 2 men versus 1 man. 2 males versus 1 male. And everyone knows that in the rules of testimony, 2 witnesses will certainly overrule whatever 1 witness says. Avol shtei noshim be'ish echad. But if it's a question of 2 women going up against the testimony of 1 man, ki palga upalga domi. It's like one against one. To appreciate this a little more, we take a look at Rashi. Ki palga upalga domi klomar. Ki palga literally means half, but in this case, if it's a case of two women against one man, what does it mean? It's ki chad v'chad. It's like one against one. Ve'i bevas achas osu. If they came together, then uki trei lebahadi chad v'ukmei asfeka. Then you would just pit off the two women against the one man. The two women saying that nitmeis, the two women that claim nitmeis and one man saying lo nitmeis, they would cancel each other out. V'ukmei asfeka. And the Sotah is back to the Safek position because they canceled each other out. Now notice, we're focusing on a case where there's one man versus the two women. Here we're not saying just follow the majority of Deos. So what is it? It's viewed as one against one. And when is that? If they came in simultaneously. If, however, the two women and that one man are not coming in together, and the one that the Torah believes, namely the single man testifying nitmeis, if he comes in first and his testimony is accepted, it's not a case of basach, it's a case of bazach. He would then have the power of two. V'hanoch, the two women, kechad, have the power of one. V'ein divrei b'makomo, and their testimony has no weight against his testimony of nitmeis, and there would be no drinking, even though the two women are saying lo nitmeis. V'heicho d'shtayim omros nitmeis, and in a case where two women are saying nitmeis, that there was defilement. V'eid echad kosher omer lo nitmeis, and one kosher witness is saying she was not defiled. Hoisa shoisa, she will drink. Mind you, even though there were two women saying nitmeis. Nitmeis is the classic case of no drinking. But they were followed by one man saying lo nitmeis. So he cancels them out. She drinks. It's like one against one. Umasnisin dekotoni lo hoisa shoisa, that there would be no drinking. Kagon dahu chad have posel. That's a case where the case of the Mishnah, of course, is case number 3, where two said nitmeis and one said lo nitmeis, and the Mishnah ruled there is no drinking. It's because that echod, that one that said lo nitmeis, was have posel. Dahu chad have posel. Was a puzzle. So then, in a case like that, we say it's two against one. The two had said nitmeis, and the one was two women against one woman, and therefore we follow the rov deos. But just to repeat ourselves, had that one who was saying lo nitmeis been a man, he would have countered the two women saying nitmeis, and therefore there's no, say, knowledge of what happened. You're left with the suffix, and in that case, as we saw here in the Rashi, she would drink. Now we turn back to the Gemara. At this point, according to how Reb Chia presents the sugya, how he presents the Mishnah, cases 2 and 3 are learned, as we said, on their own, and no inference is to be drawn from them. And the two cases 2 and 3 of the Mishnah, are dealing with psulei edus. And the rule is, follow the majority. Two say one way, one says the other way, you'll follow the two against the one. Either way, you're going to follow the two against the one. The Gemara asks, V'tarti b'psulei edus lomali, what do I need two separate cases, to illustrate that concept, that when you're dealing with psulei edus, follow the majority? Just teach one case. Mahu detema, without teaching both cases, I would have thought, ki azlinon bosa roiv deis, When is it that we say follow the majority, l'chumra, if the result would be making her drink? L'chumra means stringency. For our purposes, stringency means making her drink. Of course, subjecting her to the danger of exploding, of dying. So, without having taught both cases, I would have thought that, I'll follow when you're dealing with psuliatus, you follow the majority. That's in the case that two are saying lo nitmes, and one is saying nitmes. That would be, in effect, case number 2, where two are saying lo nitmes, one is saying nitmes. Follow the two that said lo nitmes, and then we're left with the doubt. She drinks. That's l'chumra. Avol l'kula. But the scenario that is represented by case 3, what did it say in case 3? 2 said nitmes, 1 says not. Well, you'd follow the 2 against the 1. What would the result of that be? The Mishnah says itself lo hoysa shoysa, but I wouldn't say that. L'kula, but to follow rov deos, resulting in her not having to drink, lo azlinon, I would have thought maybe there we don't follow the rov deos. Komash malon, the Mishnah reveals to us by teaching the additional case that even when the result is her not drinking, even when the result of following the rov deos is this leniency of her not drinking, we still follow the rov deos. And you can see with Siyata Dishmaya, we have arrived at the end of this entire parak, albeit one shiur. And Amir Hashem, next time we'll continue with the 7th parak, Elu Nem B'chol Loshon. With that, we conclude our shiur for today.